I want to also, I might tell a fib.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs, the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host with the toast where I toast. Oh, Jesus Christ. Here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, and Mark is here too, apparently. Lay down. We're gonna talk about the week before, because obviously, I mean, what else would I talk about? Shout out Night Coffee, by the way. And Night Coffee is not a brand. It's not a sponsorship. It's me drinking regular coffee at 8:30 p.m. Anyway, the week before, I've been talking about it a lot, and I'm going to continue talking about it because it's a really important book. But I'm not just going to talk about the book in general, because that's kind of last week's gig. I wanted to focus today and kind of brainstorm in real time when I think FNAF 1 takes place, given all of the information we got in this book, because we got a good amount of it. So this is kind of like the When Does FNAF 1 Take Place podcast. I'm going to go into the theories that have been established thus far, go into past theories, go into my previous theory, and then start bleeding into what this book is telling us, all that jazz. Full disclosure, I believe planning things out next week's video is probably going to be on a similar topic, trying to figure out when FNAF 1 takes place using this book as a lot of help. So you can consider this kind of a preview to that. Not this week's video. This week's video is The Bite of 87, I believe. This book has us going back in time, for real. But without any further ado, what were the theories for FNAF 1's timeline placement, right? Well, as far as like its relative placement, obviously it takes place after FNAF 2, that is established, and it has to take place before FNAF 3. Those are like the only hard constants. Because FNAF 3 is essentially like a haunted house talking about how this ancient pizzeria that used to be open had a bunch of horrible stories about it. So if that's a thing, then the place has to be closed for that to exist. So all we know for a definite is that it takes place after FNAF 2 and before FNAF 3. As far as where the other games lie, it's a bit harder to say. Follow Me gives us some insight, because in Follow Me, William leads the animatronics one by one to a back room and disassembles them. It's at the FNAF 1 location, whether or not this is during FNAF 1. Although I will say it's notable, in this minigame, the FNAF 1 location is closed down. There's like a boarded up door on the front door. But he disassembles all the animatronics and then dies. So the question is, does this take place before or after FNAF 1 and before or after Sister Location? I personally believe in Molten MCI. Molten MCI being that Molten Freddy is made up of the spirits of the missing child incident. I think that makes a lot of sense. So how do we get there? Well, we trace backwards. Molten Freddy is one half of Ennard. Ennard being all of the fun times forming into an amorphous blob, trying to look human-shaped and wearing Michael Afton as a skin suit to escape Sister Location. Then after Sister Location and after some time, they split off into Molten Freddy and Scrap Baby. So Scrap Baby and Circus Baby and the others were Ennard, and that would be Elizabeth and the missing child incident victims. So we go to Ennard. Well, what is Ennard made out of? Like I said, all the fun times, including Circus Baby. Circus Baby, we know for a near fact, is just Elizabeth Afton. So the other fun times would then have the missing child incident victims. That little stretch of time isn't the hard assumption. The stretch of time I just went over from old MCI isn't the assumption of the theory, because like fun times to Molten Freddy is pretty direct and nearly confirmed. The problem then comes into, okay, what souls are in the fun times. And this is where the theories start to happen. In the Silver Eyes series, William Afton is conducting remnant experiments by he basically melts together the original FNAF animatronics and extracts molten metal from that and like a husk of an animatronic and injects it into the Funtime animatronics in the fourth closet. And we see in this like spiritual realm that literally the missing child incident victims are appearing and taking control of these robots, listening to William Afton. So this is a thing established in the book that is possible. And then we see Sister Location, where we see these Funtime animatronics, and the Scooper, which, according to FNAF 6, is a device that can inject remnant. So the thinking goes, okay, well, in the games, William melted down the original animatronics and injected them into the Funtimes, and they form into Ennard, into Molten Freddy. Got it. If that's the case, and that's the kind of the crux of the Molten MCI argument, if that is the case, we have an issue with Follow Me. Because Follow Me has all of the animatronics sectioned off to a near back room and dismantled by William Afton. And then, on the fifth night, he dies. So, it's like, all right, the one time he disassembles them to presumably do this, he dies after. So, how does this line up? There's a couple ways to explain it. For a while, and I think I might still believe this. It's hard to say. Yeah, I think I still believe this. My explanation, well, I'll save my explanation for later. Some people believe that the fifth night of Follow Me takes place much long after the first 4 nights. So essentially, William Afton goes, disassembles the animatronics, and then brings those pieces back, makes the Funtimes, and they're unruly. So he needs to go back and get the Spring Bonnie suit. And like, that's valid. I think that's a valid interpretation. I don't prefer it because it's weird to have these 5 mini games back to back to back, but the 5th one is different. So like that feels odd. I have a different theory, and I think I still believe this. I don't remember anything disproving it. I'd have to double check my like timeline mega document to see if there was some interpretation that made me differ. But essentially, it was that the toys are how the MCI victims get into the Funtimes. So essentially, right, we know from the FNAF 2 phone calls that the original animatronics were going to be redesigned, but the redesign didn't really work, and it just made them look creepy, and they still stunk because nobody washes these things. So instead, they kind of sectioned them off to a back room, and they used them for spare parts when needed for the main toy animatronics. No, Mark, you were pacing on me. You cannot be on my lap if you're going to walk in circles. I need to focus. You see this motherfucker? You saw him the whole time, not settling, walking in circles. The moment I put him to the side, look at what he's doing. If I rest here, the thing that drives me crazy about this cat, when he wants attention, he will sit on the chair next to me and just claws out, paw at my arm until I give him attention. And I'm like, stop scratching me. Like, he's not scratching, but it definitely isn't comfortable. You know what I mean? But anyway, so if there are pieces from the original animatronics being used to repair the toy animatronics, then I was taking that as our excuse for why the toys act strange, because the possession of the missing child incident victims is being moved partially into the toy animatronics. It's almost like a beta test of remnant injection, where you're taking the whole piece of metal and affixing it to another thing. And then we have a perfect reason for how it goes to Sister Location, because after the Bite of 87 closes down the FNAF 2 location, or the DCI, it's hard to tell, after the FNAF 2 location closes, the originals are kept for safekeeping, but the toys are scrapped, which to me says there is now a roster of animatronics not currently in use, and no longer paid attention to because they're being thrown away. William can just dumpster dive, grab those, melt them down, inject them into the fun times. And now some of the remnant is injected into the fun times, and some of the remnant remains with the originals, which is why the fun times act so animalistic. It's part of some of the remnant mixed together, and it's just a uncontrollable mess. So I believe that, which means Follow Me can take place all in one go after FNAF 1. Essentially, the sister location experiments are not going well. William goes to get more remnant and dies. So this would take place after FNAF 1. So my kind of timeline of events is FNAF 2, FNAF 2, FNAF 1, Follow Me, sister location, FNAF 3. Kind of in that order. But that is debatable. But that's kind of my timeline placement, and that hasn't changed from the week before. That has not changed at all. But I figured it was important if we're placing a game in a year to also place it in the timeline. So what does this book say about the year? Because that's what it does say a lot about. I completely forgot. What did people think about the year? And I'll be brief on this one. I feel like there were three main theories I would see around, at least three methods of dividing a time for the FNAF 1 game. And the first one, I believe the most common one, and this is in part thanks to Game Theory, since they were kind of the biggest promoter of this theory, and that is the minimum wage divination method, right? Where looking at how much money you make in Five Nights at Freddy's 1 and tracking where that lines up for minimum wage. And I don't remember the details, it's been a long time, but I did look up the video, and they got to 1993 with that method, which is squarely within plausible times, because FNAF 2 takes place in 1987, and it is believed that FNAF 3 takes place in 2013, to be 30 years after the opening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. That is the belief. It is also possible that it's closer to... Well, I'll save that for something else that I think is interesting. Some people believe that FNAF 3 takes place 30 years after Freddy's closed for good, which is also possible, but we don't have a good year for that. So the other method I've seen was in the first phone call. Phone guy says, if you had to do this same song and dance for 20 years and you never got a bath, you'd be irritable too. Well, that's pretty easy to tell. FNAF or Freddy Fazbear's Pizza opened in 83. That is confirmed multiple times. So this takes place in 2003. Simple as, add 20 years. Or roughly 2003 if 20 is an estimate. Some people of this theory also believe that FNAF 1, the Freddy's location is closed during FNAF 1, similar to the movie, but that's not necessary for this theory. We don't know how long the FNAF 1 location was open for, if it was open. And then there's my preferred theory. This is the theory I've been purporting for a while, and that's using the day of the week to divine the FNAF 1 timeline. So we know for a fact that FNAF 2 takes place in November of 1987 because we get two paychecks in FNAF 2, and September. I apologize. We get two paychecks in FNAF 2, and it's September 12th and September 13th, notably Friday the 13th, 1987. So my thinking is that if Fazbear pays on a Thursday and a Friday consistently, and like if you're a business and you pay people, you want those payments to be consistent. So assuming the payday of the week has not changed, then it is notable that in FNAF 1, even though our paychecks don't have a year, they are still September 11th. It's going to bother me. No, it is November, isn't it? Okay. I wrote these notes. It's so sure that 11 was September, and I think it's just because we're in September. 11 is November, so my bad. Anyway, still the method stands, but there might be some slight readjustments on the fly. This is why we brainstorm before we write things. But the FNAF 1 paychecks are the same, November 12th and November 13th. So my thinking was, and I'm sure I'm not the first person that thought this, but my thinking was that if FNAF 2 it takes place on Friday the 13th, essentially, then I would not put it past Scott to make that a recurring thing in the fact that FNAF 1 would have also taken place on a Friday the 13th. So my then question became, okay, especially also, again, with the regular payments, if you're already paying people on Thursday and overtime on Friday, that should stay consistent. So the question that became, what other November Friday the 13ths have existed after FNAF 2 and before FNAF 3? Well, we get a couple options. We get, again, 1987, November 13th. There is a Friday the 13th in November in 1992. There's a Friday the 13th in 1998. And then the next one is 2009, which feels a little far. And then we're getting to 2015. And again, it's just getting a little far. Although, for the people who think FNAF 3 takes place in 2015, because there are some people that believe that, that's not a bad idea. If it's Friday the 13th, or I know did some people say they believe it takes place in 2023? There was not one in 2023, but again, this is not a hard rule. This is just something I thought of. So then this gives us the years 92, 98, and 2009. And I personally was of the belief that this takes place at the time, I believed 92. Because that gets us close to that minimum wage number that Game Theory and others had purported, and it aligns a little bit closer to the paychecks being consistent. And then that also puts us squarely 5 years after the Bite of 87, which I think is a reasonable amount of time for William to experiment and then realize I need more and go back to FNAF 1 after FNAF 1 happens, right? So I kind of ran with that for a while, and that was my thinking at the time. But now we have the week before. So what does the week before tell us for the timeline of events here? And it's nothing necessarily directly, but we get a lot of context from Phone Guy himself, Ralph, because he's been working at Freddy's for a very long time. And he reminisces about different things. So I've made a list of the important facts here. First of all, Ralph's daughter is 11, which is important. Ralph's daughter, Coppelia, is 11. And that's important because Ralph recorded another set of FNAF voicemails that is not in 1 or 2 at a specific time. So I have it pulled up here. On the first night, we get a voicemail somehow. And it's like, how do I have that? And if you have the code, which you shouldn't have on a first playthrough, unless I'm mistaken. But I guess on your second playthrough, if you have the code, you can punch it in. And you realize, press 1 to listen to a new message, and it plays, quote, "Hello, welcome to your first security shift. I'm taping this message to help you get settled on your first night and prepare you for your new and exciting career path. First, here's a greeting from management. Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, a magical place for kids and grown-ups alike, where fantasy and fun come to life. Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for damage to your property or person. Upon discovery of damage or if death has occurred, a missing persons report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly..." You hang up there. And again, that's notable because that is not the first or second game's phone messages. The greeting from management, that appears, sure, but neither of them open with, "I'm taping this message to help get you settled on your first night." I checked. Taping this message does not occur. So we don't know exactly when this was recorded. The thinking goes, was this another version of the FNAF 1 opening? Maybe. But it can't be the FNAF 1 opening because it follows later on. It's strange listening to a recording of yourself, especially from one so long ago. If you remember correctly, your daughter had just been born. Coppelia is 11 years old. This voicemail was recorded around 11 years ago. So this is our firm time frame that we can start working with. Whenever FNAF 1 took place was 11 years after Ralph recorded this message. What's worth pointing out here is that you can say, like, sure, a couple words are changed, but that might just be the FNAF 1 or that might just be like the FNAF 2 recording. Counterpoint, every other voicemail is incredibly faithful to a point where on a Easter egg later on, you can punch in 1987 to the voicemail box to see if you can get a voicemail. And then it says incorrect password backwards. So you enter 7891 and then you hear a series of clicks and a whir of a tape being rewound, and then you hear, hey, good job, night 5. Hey, keep a close eye on things tonight, okay? We don't have a replacement for your shift yet, but we're working on it. Well, just enough to get through one more night. Hang in there. Good night. The paragraph above it, does that sound familiar? It should. That's the FNAF 2 phone call, but not quite. There's a couple missing lines. It says, it sounds familiar, then you recognize it as your own voice. You're listening to a recording you made some time ago for new employees. Someone has edited it. The only voicemail that is inaccurate in this entire book is the Night 5 voicemail for FNAF 2, where it points out that somebody edited it. And if you look at the FNAF 2 Night 5 phone call, all the lines that were removed were talking about, hey, we're under a lockdown, there's an investigation, don't worry about it. Like all the crime stuff, that's been removed. So this is important. Not only is Fazbear looking back at those recordings, but they're editing out those items. So then the question goes, when does this 11-year-old recording take place? If we can figure that out, we can get a time for FNAF 1. So we have a couple options here, right? It could be 94 or 96. 11 years after 1983, 11 years after 1985. That is possible. I don't love that because we don't have any other linking ideas. I would love if this agrees with a theory on the year already. Not to say this is impossible, but also consider Ralph is recording this message and he's worked here a long time. To me, this would say, and he also mentioned that he was young and naive. So to me, is this saying this is before the missing child incident? Possibly. Is he just reminiscing about when he was younger? Very possibly. FNAF 2 is also not out of the question. It is worthwhile to mention, in FNAF 2, the recordings we do hear say, welcome to the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and he doesn't say that in this one. So it could just be a different recording, totally possible. Could have been edited out, we're not sure. But if this is a FNAF 2 recording, then this would be 1987. Important to note, this does line up with a previous theory, because 11 years after 1987 is 1998, and that was one of the weekday years that we got. The only other thing we get is that, like year-wise, is that Coppelia plays a Sega Genesis, so it has to be at least 1989, because that's when that came out. It is notable that it cannot be 02 or 09, because 11 years before 02 would have been like 91, and that doesn't line up with it. That would be like during FNAF 1 at best, you know? And 2009 is a similar story. 11 years before that is what? 98 again, you know? So the timeline does not work for that. Wait, no. I'm so dumb. 92. But same difference. How did I? Oh, wait, no. I read 03 on my page. Oh, my God. Mental math at 9 p.m. I'm brave. All right. I'm an English major. This is not my strong suit. So, 98. I think right now, just on the face of it, this book is telling us that FNAF 1 either takes place between 1994 and 1996 or 1998. And since 1998 is one of the other years we can get from one of our previous methods, currently I'm sticking to my guns in 1998. And no, that is not bias because I was born in 1998, but I do think with the information we have presented to us, that's our best option. I want to also, I might tell a fib. I was thinking about like fun bits that I could do in the video, and one of them that I really like, there's a musical called I Love You Because, one of my favorite musicals, very not super well known, but I love it a lot. It's just a fun little rom-com. But there is a song called the Actuary Song, where in the scene, there's two friends, and one of them had just gotten off of a breakup, and she's like, I just need to find somebody new. And then her friend, who is the actuary, which is like an accountant, I think, I don't know, English major, but she says like, oh, no, if you date too soon, you'll ruin that relationship, and then you'll have to wait again, and you'll be in this vicious cycle. You need to wait the proper amount. And she goes, oh, so like what, 6 months? And then the song starts where she's like, oh, no. I have an exact method to mathematically determine exactly how long you need to wait until you can find a new perfect guy. And that's kind of where the crux of the musical begins, because the thinking goes that not only do you have to wait that amount of time, but you need to find a terrible partner during that time to help reset yourself. So she goes out to find like her least, the partner with the least chemistry possible. And that's where the rom-com happens. But she mathematically determines that the exact amount of time she'll need to wait is 6 months. And then there's a part in the song, and I want to use that part, where the one character goes, but isn't that what I said 10 minutes ago? And the first girl goes, but now it's proven. And I really want to use that, but I'll have to check. I think in my original theory, I said FNAF 1 probably takes place in 92. And I now think it's 98. So I can't make that joke, but I'm going to check. And hopefully I said FNAF 1 takes place in 98, so I can make that joke. And if I didn't, I'm tempted to just say I did so the joke can be made. I don't know. We'll find. Tell you what. You know what? I'll look it up right now. Why Not is a fun Pokemon. Speaking of why not, I just made the first video for the second channel. These are going up in October, weekly on Saturdays at probably 2 p.m. No, probably noon. These are going up on the second channel, and they're going to be weekly at 2 p.m. I think I just said the same thing twice. This is what I get for reading and scrolling and talking. But I'm really, really proud and happy with how they came out. It's not going to be a theory focused channel. There will be Pokemon theories, but it's going to be kind of all encompassing, I think. Like theories, rankings, what's the best team in X game, best gym leaders, news, stuff like that. I think like just a general Pokemon channel, kind of like your MNJ TVs or your Hoops and Hip Hop or your Lockston and Noggin, something like that. Not challenges. I do not have the patience to do like those crazy beating Gen 3 with just Swellow kind of craziness. No, thank you. Where? Okay, now we're at the beginning of my channel. So scroll until we see something that's showing FNAF 1. Did I never make a dedicated video for this? I swore I did. Man, I haven't made dedicated videos about so much. I've been holding myself back from making specific videos because I'm like, oh, I've already talked about it. And I'm looking at my channel. No, I didn't. I didn't talk about so much early shit. Like, what? I think maybe I'm just confusing me making the timeline. And maybe that's where I'm getting all of this, like, wrong information in my brain from. Let me check my timeline. Maybe. Am I going to cut this out? I don't know. You'll know. I'll know when I'm editing this. I might cut this out. This seems like bad podcasting. I don't know. Did I not make a theory on when FNAF 1 takes place? I was so sure I did. Well, I guess I can say fucking anything now. Because I just didn't... I just not... Oh, wait. When did the FNAF games happen in the timeline? 5 months ago. Maybe I said it here. I don't even see me talking about the goddamn paychecks in here. Bro, I don't know. It's been so long. I'm just going to say I thought it was 98. I can't find a video. I swore I made a video on that, but I guess I didn't. That's crazy. Man, I didn't make a lot of videos I thought I did. It's almost like I've only been making videos for like 3 years. That's crazy. Anyway, I think that's what I'll do. I think I've settled on 1998 for FNAF 1. And that meaning this. Does he describe them the same exact way? Because that would be good, like secondary evidence. Not quite, but similar. He says some time ago and so long ago. So both of them are some time or so long ago. Interesting. I think I'm settling on 98, but I guess you'll see in like a week and a half. So let's move on to questions. I don't know what time in the video this is because I just spent like 5 minutes digging through my old videos. But if you have a question or theory you want talked about on the podcast, you can send them to Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. That is in the description, so you can copy and paste it because it's pain to type out. Another thing that's in the description that you can copy and paste, and I'm not drinking it because I'm drinking night coffee right now, but I am partnered with Gamersupps. You can use code RYTOAST or the link in the description to get 10% off your order and also give me some money when you do that. I get a cut of whatever sale that you do with that code. So it supports me and it gets you a good drink. I do genuinely like Gamersupps. My favorite flavor right now is Copium, but we're about to get Dragon Fruit Punch in the mail. I'll let you know how I think about it. Anyway, our first question actually isn't a question. We've got a rare, but it happens, theory review. But essentially, Philip, him, sent a theory to the email, and it's not really a question. It's just kind of him stating a theory, but I really liked it and wanted to talk about it. So, shout out Philip, and let's talk about his theory. I'm just going to read his email out verbatim. I've had these thoughts / beginnings of a theory floating around my head since VIP came out and wanted to get it out there since I haven't heard any talk about it in the hype of FNAF week. I feel like part of VIP was trying to explain more about what we are experiencing in Help Wanted 2. Specifically, Help Wanted 2 being based on the MOE. In VIP, the only way to win is to use the max occupancy experience, which you do by sitting at a terminal and putting on a helmet that is designed to look like Glamrock Freddy's head, with wires and circuits exposed on the inside. To get the best ending, you have to use the MOE inside of the MOE. In Help Wanted 2, you start wearing a Bonnie mask, which has been exposed... Vanny mask, but still... you start wearing a Vanny mask, which has exposed wires and circuits on the backside, and you use a computer to experience rides and games that aren't around anymore, and to do employee tasks and training. Once it's revealed that you're wearing the mask, you're able to take it off to see the area is actually in ruin. The computer used to access games is more terminal-like. Even though you don't have the mask on, you can still experience these VR attractions and training. What if that's because you've only taken off one mask? What if, like in VIP, you are in double VR? VIP tells us that the MOE was not tested because nobody wanted to do it. It wasn't as cool as the real thing. So what if they adapted it for employee training, even to the extent of practicing worst-case scenarios like the carousel catching fire? Or maybe when Cassie's dad becomes Maskbot, some of his memories get copied into the system. Weird long-shot theory. We are playing as Cassie, after Ruin, who somehow makes it back to the underground restaurant, finds a Bonnie mask at a terminal, and not realizing she still has hers on, puts on the second one on her VR self. And through that, she learns what happened to her father. Rambling theories aside, I feel like the double VR is important to Help Wanted 2, and don't want it to get lost into the Into the Pit hype. Thanks for reading. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, Phil. Phil, you had me, and then you lost me a little at the end. I really like the idea that Help Wanted 2 was double VR. That we were at a terminal, we put on a mask, and at some point we put on that mask again. And that's where Help Wanted 2 starts, in that crisp, clear, digital space. And when we take off our mask, we're only taking off the one. How fitting is it that Help Wanted 2 launched as VR only? So literally in the real world, we are playing a VR game with a VR mask on top. Is that actually happening to the player of Help Wanted 2? That being said, that I really like, and we will talk about it more, but I do want to talk about, and you pointed out too, Where did you specifically put it? Yeah, you also, weird long shot theory. You pointed that out. Playing as Cassie, making it back to the underground restaurant and putting it on, reliving her father's memories. I don't see that as much, and that's mainly because of the Princess Quest 4 ending. Like, it's one of those things that, like, I think you could make that argument, but between the fact that all 3 of the Ruin endings are pretty bad for Cassie and the Princess Quest 4 ending not really fitting with her character arc, I hesitate to say Cassie is doing this. But I think you have a really good idea there for possibly Cassie's dad, or if Help Wanted 2's protagonist is not Cassie's dad, whoever that is, being in 2 VR experiences. Because putting on the MOE twice is a weird thing. And you're right, that deserves to be looked at. And having this be technically the thing that released after Help Wanted 2, right? We had Help Wanted 2, and then the next official FNAF thing that came out was VIP. I think you might be right. I want to think about it some more. Maybe I'll make a full video on this. Obviously crediting you. Email it. I'll reply to your email if you want me to shout out anything specific. Or if you would rather I not make a video on this, but we can talk. No, this is really interesting. I like this interpretation a lot. I was going to say one of the only things with the MOE, it should be noted, yes, you use a terminal with the mask, but you can still walk around, because one of the endings in VIP, everything goes black when you unplug VIP, and Devin takes off the mask and he's still in the server room. So you do still move around, but that doesn't necessarily go against what you're saying. It would be just more along the lines of you can use the terminal or you can go to the place, right? No, that's really interesting, and I think there's a lot of merit to that argument. So thank you for sending that in. That was really, really interesting thoughts. Because we did a theory review, we really only have time for one more question. So we're going to do a question now from Dingus, he, him. Going to be real. I think part of the reason why I picked this one is because your name is Dingus, and that's really fun to say. But do you think Secret of the Mimic will be like Help Wanted, where you play as a silent protagonist with various minigames that you can choose? Or do you think it'll be more of a story-driven game with a talking protagonist like Ruin? Thank you for your question. I think some of both of those are true. I do think it'll be a more story-driven narrative experience like Ruin, but I think we'll probably still have a silent protagonist. As much as I want a talking protagonist to glean information about them, I have a feeling it might be a silent protagonist. What I don't think Secret of the Mimic is going to be a minigame collection like Help Wanted is. Honestly, I think the only minigame collections we're going to get are going to be Help Wanted. They've already shown they're willing to do Help Wanted and Help Wanted 2. I'm willing to bet 5 years we get a Help Wanted 3. You know what I mean? Like, I think it makes a lot of sense that minigame collection style of game is what Help Wanted is for. So if Secret of the Mimic is the same thing again, I don't see it happening. Not to mention, Help Wanted 2 did sell very well. Don't get me wrong. But there was much less hype around, like, after Help Wanted 2 came out than there was Help Wanted and Security Breach. And I think that's twofold. One, VR-only launches always do something like that, and it's not novel anymore like it was the first time. But two, Help Wanted 2, I think, wasn't as hype after the fact because it was really, really fun to play, but not as fun to watch as a viewer. So it didn't pop off as much on YouTube. And I'll tell you what, I know for a fact Help Wanted 2 did not pop off as much as Security Breach or Ruin or Help Wanted did on YouTube because I can see my analytics. And either I sucked post Help Wanted 2 or Ruin even was more interesting to the YouTube watcher community than Help Wanted 2, right? And I think it's a matter of new lore being brought to the table where Help Wanted 2 is kind of more of wrapping up a bow, and also the idea of watching someone play a really scary horror game is more entertaining to a viewer than watching someone play a pretty scary, really fun game. So I think Secret of the Mimic being, again, a minigame collection might miss the mark in that way. That being said, if it's VR only again, that is also going to damper the mood. I know they said they're working on getting flat mode to, like the non-VR mode to release simultaneously. God, I hope they do. And I hope it's not derivative. I hope it was a game first with VR enhancing it, not a VR game first and then a flat mode that you can also play, right? Because VR exclusivity, as fun and cool as that can make a game, is really exclusive of a player base. And FNAF has always been so accessible. So I think it'll miss that mark if it's VR exclusive. I don't know what the details are business-wise, but I really hope it's not VR exclusive. And I don't think a minigame collection is the right direction to go, personally. But we'll see. You know, it's looking like a great game regardless. So I'm going to play it and love it. But that's my thoughts. But thank you for your question. And if you have a question or theory you'd like me to review, you can send that into Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com. Once again, that's in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type. That's about all we've got for today. So, thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where your pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.